Welcome to Effective Living TV with your host, Ricardo Miller. Here you will find engaging conversations to help you create a life you don't need to take a vacation from.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Effective Living. I'm your host, Ricardo Miller, and tonight I'm joined with my brother. Listen, we're going to be talking about something that I wanted to share. I had a feeling that something I wanted to host this year, and still believing that I'll get a chance to host at some point, was going to be held tomorrow, which I'm postponing my Blueprint Summit. But I wanted to invite my brother to join me, and let's talk about this whole concept of a blueprint for your life. Dominic Antonino, what's going on, bro? Welcome back.
Hey, my friend. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
It's been a while for you having done a live with me. We've done so many of these.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID-19, the pandemic year, really had us going live on so many levels. What have you been up to? I know at work you're progressively moving forward. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Um, Accepted another role at a company doing what I've been doing in the staffing industry.
Yeah.
Except, took a position that allowed me full control or full access of a team, and it's worked out well enough that now we're positioning to really progress with the company as well. So it's been great. It's nice to be valued. It's nice to be allowed not just responsibility but authority, and really allows me to just to be me. And it's been good. It's been really good.
Man, congratulations on all that you're doing. And
Appreciate
how's my little niece doing?
it. She's good. She's growing.
Yeah.
She is definitely growing and has quite the personality. She's a character. Yeah,
That is
she's great
awesome.
though.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, man, I wanted to talk about a blueprint. But before we
hmm
talk about blueprint, let's talk about leadership for a moment. I've been having this
Okay.
strong passion to talk about leadership, to help leaders, and more specifically, transitioning the leadership concept of today that will progressively move an entity, be it any entity. But I want to talk more specifically about it in church work. Why is leadership so important in church
Hmm.
work? When oftentimes we often think just spirituality, but leadership, is it something that is important, and should we put it on the table more frequently?
Yeah, I mean, Bill Hybels says it. He said everybody wins when a leader gets better. Leadership is all about vision, right? And I think I've said this on your show before. I believe what truly separates leadership and management is simply vision. And so, there's been a big move in leadership. Talking about leadership is when you really love people and take care of people. And I think you should do that in management and leadership. I think really again, the differentiator is vision. And so in the church, the Bible says, without a vision, the people perish. And so I think that supports the role of leadership as far as being a visionary and leading people from one place to another. Um, and I think in churches sometimes, yeah, I think this is going to sound a little, I don't know how this is going to sound, but we depend too much on prayer and not enough on the practical application of what to do when we get when we get off our knees. And the church is an organization, and organizations do require leadership. And God sets leaders in place. I mean, He uses Moses to lead the children of Israel out of slavery. We see Him using Joshua to lead them into the promised land. Well, we see Jesus, right? I mean, Jesus leading us in life. John the Baptist leading people to Jesus. We see after Jesus, the apostles leading the church and growing the church and overseeing the church and its growth. So I think there's many, many examples within the Bible that we can say leadership is definitely present. But even as God talks about headship, right? He
Yeah.
talks about leadership in the home. He talks about leadership just in life. I mean, his Christianity itself, we're talking about His kingdom. That's leadership. A king, kingdom is not a kingdom without a king.
Yeah.
That's leadership. So I I think where we, you know, where it's in the church world sometimes, and this depends on your organization and how you're set up. A lot of times the pastors, you know, the preaching is what we think about the most, um, rather than the CEO position, you know, of actually growing the organization, it being healthy,
Mm,
and really fulfilling its vision. Again, that's what leadership is fulfilling vision, leading people from one place, from A to Z, right? Or A to B. That's leadership.
let's talk about this. I like what you said.
Hmm.
There is this very healthy understanding that we must pray, but we after we prayed, we have to get up and do something.
Hmm.
What would
Yeah.
you say may have been the mistake over the years on the church giving so much more attention to church in general? That's globally. I've worked
Hmm.
with hundreds and thousands of individuals over the years that we find that people are more passionate about getting a title and not understanding the leadership responsibility that falls within a title.
Mm.
What's your view there?
Yeah, I think, I mean, and we have that in the corporate world as well, right?
Yeah.
And so, really, title is just about ego and pride, and God very clearly speaks against that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, leadership is about serving, or should be about serving. It's not a place for selfishness. In the corporate world, like, you know, I'm in a sales environment. Our top producers tend to be the worst leaders because they're extremely selfish. That's what makes them a top producer.
Wow.
A leader is a very unselfish role. And so, you know, that title thing comes from ambition, comes from pride, comes from ego. We think it's due to we need authority, so we need a title,
Mhm.
but authority really doesn't come from a title, you know, and true
Mhm.
influence comes from relationship and trust and respect, you know, bringing value to individuals. And
Wow.
so, yeah, I mean, I definitely, I think, you know, we've had churches start because people had ambition and egos, but I think also within that role,
Mhm.
it's tough to deal with sometimes. You know, we all
Wow.
have flesh.
Yeah.
You know, we all have to. You know, even I'm very confident and comfortable in my current role and the
Yeah.
people that work around me, but I have to check myself sometimes too to make sure I'm listening to those people around me versus, you know, versus feeling myself, right? And so I think we all have that within ourselves. And I've said
Let's
this before that, go ahead.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I said this before. I think, you know, when we look at ministry, we think, you know, the killers of ministry are, you know, you heard the three G's, you know, girls, gold, and glory.
Yep.
I really think the, or maybe from my experience, maybe it's me just individually, but I think from what I've seen, I think the silent killer of ministry is really ambition
Wow.
because it causes you, you're pursuing something that you think is God and it's not.
Wow.
All right. And you get out and that causes you to be, and then when you're away from God, then you're really out there depending on yourself.
How do you balance that, in your opinion? How do you balance a healthy ambition and versus leading on just pure interest for more, which is an
Yeah.
unending quench that cannot be
Yeah.
filled?
Yeah. And it's funny because we started this by saying, you know, after you were done praying, we have to get up and do something. And I think the answer to your question is the opposite. Now you have to get back on your knees and you got to pray, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you have to submit yourself, right? You have
Yeah.
to, you know, you have to be very self-aware, so that you can, you know, say, hey, God, this is messy in me. You know, I got to
Yeah.
get this out of me.
Yeah.
But if you're not serving people, you're probably serving yourself,
Wow.
you know, and you have to be very, and how you recognize it is this, you know, when you're going out and serving people,
Yeah.
where's your heart at about it? You know,
Wow.
are you looking for the accolades? Are you looking for someone to say thank you? Are you looking to gain something from doing that? If so, you're not doing it out of a pure heart, right? Now, I'm not saying you're foul and you're sinful. I mean, we all have that within us. We all want to be appreciated.
Yeah.
But when, you know, that's just an indicator that you can say, wait a minute, maybe there's something off in me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think as a leader, you have to stay humble. You have to know that we have a leader as well, and we have you know, the person that gives us vision is God. And I think, you know, I think we lead on our feet and we stay humble in prayer.
Yeah. When I think about the statement that you said, a leader is unselfish. I think it's not talked about. It's not viewed that way often. Why? Why do you think that's not the frontline thing that is being brought up?
Yeah, I say again, first is the ego, and the pride. But there's another aspect, and that's just immature leadership, right? If I'm a leader and I'm not confident in who I am as a leader,
Mhm.
then I want to exercise control and authority. And that's where we get a lot of micromanagement from. And it's because my leadership has not been developed enough for me to be confident in who I am. So I'm leading from a position versus who I am. All right. And then that changes the dynamic in relationship. Um, because I feel threatened when my position is threatened or when my, position not as entitled that I'm standing on. Right. Um, it takes a stronger leader to accept ideas and concepts that they don't see than it does for someone who has to always be right. And
Mm.
really, if you always have to be right, it's a very dangerous place.
Well, if you always have to be right, it is a very dangerous place. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined with my kingdom brother and very close friend, Dominic Antonino. We're talking about a blueprint on tomorrow, October 8th. I had initially planned to host a summit centered around the concept of planning out your blueprint and postponing it for a while. But I just wanted to share with my brother this evening, just one, to announce that we're postponing it. But in addition, just remind us all that the goal is to get better and to have a plan for our lives. Dominic, I've been talking about the role of leadership and management, and both of them must be looked at, I think, in all aspect of our personal lives.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go to our personal lives, let's go back to ministry because I have so many ministry friends who follow
Mm-hmm.
this platform. Let's talk about both of those, leadership
Mm-hmm.
and management, while the Spirit of God is still breathing on the Church of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
God can breathe and still show up in a very thriving way from a spiritual standpoint in a place that has leadership and proper management. What's your view on the three of those merging together?
As far as the flow of the spirit,
Yep,
leadership and management, right? And
yep,
so leadership and management, I think, work closely together. It's
yep.
just, leadership, is that vision component. Management is kind of implementation or I don't want to say execution, but more of implementation or managing of resources.
Yep.
Um, I think, this is stuff that can't be in my mind. It's not a formal structure,
Yep.
right? So leadership, I mean, understand the vision is a spiritual thing within itself, right? Order is very spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
right? But the flow of God also needs to have room to move.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be sensitive to all three, as it comes to play. Um, the I think maybe this is a way if you look at a car and the steering wheel is leadership. It's bringing the direction, right? The wheels are the manager. They're actually, they're rolling on the road. But then the spiritual is the fuel.
Wow.
And if you have no fuel, you're not going anywhere. All right.
Yeah.
But if you have fuel and you don't have direction, you're going to go in circles or you're going to end up somewhere that you don't,
You
you're
got
just going to be happy about where you are.
you
Right.
got to give us those three again. Those three are so good, man. Just recap those three. And
All right.
it's the wheel. It's the steering wheel.
The
It's the
steering wheel, the
four wheel,
tires.
the tires,
Yeah. And
and
then
the
the
fuel.
gas, the fuel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Um, I think those work in conjunction. I think all three are spiritual.
yeah,
If we're leading as a kingdom person,
yeah.
I think that all of those are again spiritual. And I think there's a time and place for everything.
Right.
I'm a big worshiper. I never want to. stop worship, right? But there's a time when it's time to shift, and that's also a part of leadership of when is it time to shift, right? And we don't shift because we have to get through our announcements, or you don't shift because it's offering time, or it's now 11:46 and on our schedule it says this. I think we have to be sensitive to the Spirit, the flow of the Spirit, to know. But that's also being in tune, right? And so I don't know. I know there again, and also, I mean, there's churches that have different reasons for a service, right? And if your purpose for a service is what some people call a seeker service, right? For that you're opening it up to bring people into Christianity, and they don't want to be in church for 5 hours, right? And so you may have a shortened worship time because that's not the time. That's more of a time to, it's like an icebreaker almost. It's a time to get people's guards down and get them kind of feeling a little bit, get them a little bit out of their flesh and more into at least their soul, where their emotions are moving, so that we can hit them with the word in a way that it reaches them. That's not the time for super spiritual Sally to be laying on the floor, snotting all over the place and wanting to worship for 4 hours. She should have done that at home, because the purpose of that specific service, according to the leadership and the vision, is for something else, right? And I think that's where we get mixed up, even as Christians. And then when we say things like, "Man, this church doesn't worship," no, it does worship. It's just this service is not for that, right? This service is a concise service, so that we can draw people that aren't used to standing up and worshiping for 4 hours, right? And I think some of that comes from also we tend to when we have issues with this is because we're not worshiping at home for 4 hours, so the only time we're going to worship is at the church, right? And so there's a lot of different dysfunction there, and I've seen some churches, they'll do a Friday night just for worship, and that allows people to come in and have that as a connection point. So I think in those ways, leadership, all those things complement one another. I think that they have to work together versus separate.
Let's talk about this understanding that, from a leader's perspective, the goal is to move forward. The idea of having a plan. You're a leadership, and from a business perspective, you understand the importance of planning 2023. You understand forecasting. Let's talk about that. The role of forecasting in the believer's life. Because a lot of times, people are just, this is how they're living, Dominic. They're living with their fingers crossed, with a hope and a prayer that October is going to be a great month, or the fourth quarter is going to be a great quarter, with their fingers crossed. And I'm guilty of it often as well. How important is a blueprint?
Yeah, I think it's as important as your goal is, right? So if it's important for you to move forward, if it's important, depending on the level of importance of obtaining your goal, determines the level of importance of the blueprint. So meaning this, if you make a goal and you really don't care about meeting it, then you don't need a blueprint because you don't care, and you're probably not, you're probably not going to reach it.
Yeah.
But if it's important to you, sorry, got something stuck in my throat. But if it's important to you, then the blueprint is very important, because the blueprint's going to tell you how to get there.
We'll let you do a little 2-minute break, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Give Dominic a chance to play his throat. We'll be right back.
Effective Living offers life management group coaching. This is a great introductory option for those who are ready for guidance to structure your life. Effective Living offers life management group coaching. This is a great introductory option for those who are ready for guidance to structure your life in such a way where there is a harmonious balance between having enthusiasm for what you need to do, coupled with fulfillment of doing what you want to do. Join our group coaching program today to start creating a life you don't need to take a vacation from. More information about our group coaching program can be found at www.ricardomiller.com.
Welcome back to Effective Living. This is a special conversation. I've invited my good brother, Dominic Antonino, to talk a little bit about leadership, talk about the critical need for having a blueprint, a plan for your life. Dominic, we were talking on the understanding that a blueprint is necessary for somebody who's wanting to progressively move forward, but you're saying if you don't have goals, you don't need a blueprint. Talk to us about that.
Actually, what I'm saying is the importance of a blueprint is a direct correlation to the importance of the goal, right?
Yes.
Because if you have a goal, you're only going to achieve it if you have a plan. Right? If you have a goal and you don't have a plan to achieve it, you're just hoping that it may happen. Actually, not even hoping. It's just a nice thing, right? So, like, you want to lose 30 pounds by the end of the year or 20 pounds by the end of the year. Excuse me. But you don't have a plan to get there. You're just hoping it's going to happen. It's not going to happen, right? So what a blueprint does, or what a plan does, it directs your energies towards the direction you want to go, right? And so that you're not going to get there by accident. It's got to be a very deliberate, move towards something. And anytime we're trying to change something, you have to be even extra. You have to have a lot of energy behind that to do a course correction, and you have to be very deliberate, and that plan allows you to be deliberate. But like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, and that's gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
But then you just adjust the plan.
Yeah.
Right. I mean that's part of the plan.
Let's talk about these three. Let's talk about these three words right here. I saw this on yesterday. I was traveling back from Tennessee, and I thought, this right here. There's just so much here, and so many people are struggling to try to establish what they need to establish. These three words. What's this? Tools, skills, attitude. The tools you need. The skills, the skill set to use the tools, and the attitude. Let's play with those for the remaining time of our talk when we talk about establishing a blueprint to build a great work. The role of tools, the role of skill, the role of attitude.
Yeah. Okay. If you allow me to back up a bit, when we're looking at this, you have vision. We talked about leadership. Mm-hmm. When you have vision, then you say, okay, how do I get from where I am to there, right? And then as you look at that, you say, now who do I have to become to do that, right? Because who I am today is enough to get started, but it's not going to be enough to get where I'm going. Ooh. And so I have to become something different, and that's part of the journey, right? And so, we see vision, and we can get excited about vision, but there's a place from where I am to where I'm going, and there's a gap there. And a lot of times it is our tools or our resources. It is our skill sets, right? And, and then our attitude, right? And our attitude really comes a lot of times in belief. And I would add a lot of things to attitude, like persistence, endurance, those type things. And so it's important to realize that. So, there was see, that's why in church you got people bringing water to the preacher. We don't do that in the corporate world. In the corporate world, you get your own water. Or maybe I haven't risen high enough in the corporate world to have someone to bring me water. So, who I am today and what I have today
Yeah.
may not be enough, and probably is not going to be enough to sustain me or get me all the way to where I need to be. You could think about this. If I have to do a 100-mile journey,
Yeah.
right? And I pack up everything I can in the backpack for that journey. What I have in my backpack is not going to be enough to sustain me 100 miles,
Yeah.
right? But if along the way there are checkpoints
Yeah.
that I resupply in, as long as I stay on the path, as long as I'm building according to the plan and the direction to there, then I'm going to use what I have to get me to the next checkpoint. But at that checkpoint, I'm going to receive what I need to get farther in the journey, right? And I think as we're pursuing our goals and our dreams and visions and all that, we have to understand that where we are is enough. Where we are today is enough. The reality is you have no choice but to be enough, because you got to move forward. Even if what you have and all that and who you are is enough to get you one step forward, it's still enough to get started. Because in that step, just the fact that you're making the step, you become greater than who you were. Right. And you're going to continue to build momentum. And as you're moving in that direction, the resources and the tools are going to come, and we're going to grow. So I heard Bishop Holcomb many years ago. Bishop Holcomb is actually with the Lord now. He was talking about Shamgar's principles of deliverance. And Shamgar is, in the Old Testament, there's a couple scriptures about him. But he preached a message talking about you start where you are, you use what you got, and you do what you can. Right. And so we'll never feel like we're enough. And if we do, we're really probably off, because we probably think too highly of ourselves. Now, we can be confident. There's a difference in being confident versus being arrogant, yeah, or just wrong. Yeah. But the other side of this is being self-aware enough to know that's who I am today. Yeah. And that I have to continually improve. Yeah. Right. And so I tell people, when you say, well, I did my best. Yeah. Well, that's great. Good for you. You did your best. But if your best didn't achieve the goal, then guess what? You got to become better. You have to continue doing your best, but as you continue to do your best, you have to become better. Otherwise, you'll never reach it. Wow. So I have to continually improve myself just to sustain the journey. Yeah. But as I sustain the journey, I'm continually becoming better, which is allowing me to go farther. And as I become better, I also develop the tools necessary for the journey to make it to where I need to be. And then when I get there, I can look back and say, wow, look who I am today. I'm a lot different. I mean, you and I talk about that a lot. When we first met, I guess it's been like 20 years ago now, right? Yeah. It's like almost half our life. Yep. Who we were when we met in that little church with the fold-out plastic table, right? Who we met when we met that day, we're much different. Thank God. We're much different than where we were. Now, foundationally, there's some things that are very much the same. Right. There are skills, there are attitudes, and even tools that we possessed 20 years ago that have stayed with us and have got us here. Right. But we also have so much more just through experience and through time and through successes, and most importantly, through failures. Right. That who we are today, we can sustain a much different level of journey because we've become better. Right. And I'd venture to say, the thing that stops you and I and anybody else from being further than where we are today is only who we are today. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So
years ago, Miles Monroe used to talk about your greatest threat to your success in the future is your past success. Because sometimes people hold on to the past success and not understanding that there's some problem. That they just, bless God, I got this truck, but don't realize there's a fleet of trucks in front of you. And if you overly give all of your time and attention just to this one truck, you'll never get to the fleet of trucks. Let's talk about literally those who are desiring more for 2023,
Mhm.
those who are committed to closing this year out with this fourth quarter at the highest level. What would be some of the things you would say to a person, wanting to close out the year strong, wanting to begin the year right, the new
Yeah, I
year?
would say first look at what you came into the year with. What do you still have left to accomplish?
Yeah.
I think being a finisher is very important. It's something I've struggled with myself, right? Or I think I have.
Yeah.
I think being, completing something, it creates an attitude and a skill within itself. So I think looking at what you still have left to do, and I think you have to plan for what is the goal in 2023 and start gathering for that.
Yeah.
Use the time to plan. Now we use January to December as a planning period, but the reality is you can start anytime. You don't have to wait for January, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I think again, I think being deliberate is extremely important.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. Yeah. There's a quote, Admiral James Stockdale.
Yeah.
He's a prisoner of war. I think Jim Collins quotes him in his books. He was a prisoner of war. He came out, became an admiral in the Navy. And he says this, he says, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which is something you cannot afford to lose,
Yeah.
with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever they may be." All right. So what he's saying is this, is we have to have faith that we're going to prevail in the end. We have to. But we can't confuse that faith with the discipline that we need today to deal with reality.
Yeah.
Right? So it's I know I'm going to do this, right? I believe God. I mean, you see the mountaintop and you have extreme faith for the mountaintop, but the reality is you're at the bottom of the mountain.
Mm.
And that's a harsh reality sometimes. And so you need the faith so that you don't get stuck in the reality, right? But you need the reality to know what to do to move towards, what you're seeing. And I think that it's, when I first saw this quote, it's really burned in me.
Yeah.
Especially in the church world. I think sometimes we deal too much with what we call faith.
Yeah.
But it's really not. Because faith always comes from a word from God. We're just hoping. We're putting what we want on somebody, right? And so I think that's what I would do. I think, it's October. You have things that you want to finish. You have things you want to accomplish. I think you got to do a self-assessment.
Yeah.
Where do I want to go? Where am I at?
Yeah.
What's the brutal reality of where I am? And then I would, and look at tools, skills, and attitude. What do I need to accomplish what I need to do in 2023?
Yeah.
I'll guarantee you this. If you go into 2023 without a list of things or without a blueprint, and at the end of 2023, you'll not be there.
Wow.
You'll have maybe a 20% chance of being there, and that's just by happenstance, or you have too low of goals.
Yeah.
But if you really want to accomplish it, you've got to be deliberate. It has to be on purpose. And every vision, every goal requires sacrifice. So that means something has to be cut off or left alone to accomplish that. And that's where the blueprint comes in. It tells you what to cut off.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. It really does clean up everything for the person who's very serious about getting something done. And it takes away a lot of the guessing. Where should the garage go?
Mm-hmm.
Where should the window go? Where should the wall go?
Yeah.
In regards to building and constructing your life. Dominic, as we bring our talk to a close, there are a lot of people, this year, that they came into this year with great hope and anticipation of doing something amazing. A lot of people still accept the fact that, the fourth quarter still has the potential to bring home the trophy. Like you can still win in the fourth quarter. Let's talk about that from two more questions to ask you. But before, you can still win in the fourth quarter. Talk to that person.
Yeah, I think time is just a measurement.
Yeah.
Right. But it's not. We don't live by quarters. We don't live by years. Wherever. Again, start where you are. Use what you got. Do what you can. And I think you do have to be very honest with yourself. If you're lazy, admit you're lazy, and then figure out how not to be lazy, right? If you're if you're overweight and you have no discipline in your life when it comes to the gym, admit it to yourself, right? And then do something about it, right? And I think that's where coaching really plays a role. So if I know in my life I'm really good at this, and this, but in this area, I'm not. I need to reinforce that area of my life so it doesn't affect the other, and so that I can grow in that area. And so I either need to I need to get the right people in my life. I need to get a coach. I need to get something in there that can hold me accountable and support that, whether it's a team member, something. But it starts with the reality. It starts with stop lying and fooling yourself,
Yeah.
right? If you have never accomplished anything and you've always quit in your life, admit it. Admit it to yourself and then analyze it so that you can insulate yourself the next time from that. Otherwise, you'll continue to go in circles. And so I think we look at our successes and we look at our failures. We see, how do we repeat our successes? We look at our failures and say, how do I insulate and how do I become better to avoid them? And you always look, time is going to happen. You know, we started this call at about 5:30ish, right? It's quarter after 6. That time's gone. In a minute, it's going to be 6:17. It's going to be, wherever you are, wherever you're watching this, time is going to go by.
Yeah.
Time, it's either going to work for you or it's going to work against you. And it doesn't matter if it's Q4, Q1, Q whatever, January, October. We all have been given time, and time is going to work for you or against you. So you could have messed up this whole year. We'll start today.
Yeah.
Let today, the rest, you don't even have to wait till in the morning. I'm going to do this. Why wait till the morning? Do it now.
Yeah.
Take action now. The biggest thing I think people, we're good at setting goals, or some of us aren't, but I mean, we're good at writing stuff down, or having hopes, or having dreams. We have a plan. We have good intentions, but we don't take action. If you don't execute, if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen. So don't wait. Don't wait for January 1. Don't say tomorrow morning when I wake up. Do it right now.
Yeah.
Do it right now. If you're, I use late a lot because that's what I'm dealing with now, and I'm trying to beat myself into doing better, right? And so rather than saying, okay, I'm going to go in the gym in the morning, just stop what you're doing right now and do 25 jumping jacks. Just do something now. Just do something now. Whatever it is, do something now. If you have, if you and your wife, you're at each other and you whatever, just right now, just go tell her you love her. Just do something now that'll change. Do something now that'll change. Don't wait. You don't have to wait till this video's over. You don't have to wait till whatever. Do something now. Take action now. And use the time that you have to move you toward your goal. And in that moving toward, you are going to change. You are going to become different. The very fact that you did something now changed you. And then continue to repeat that over and over and over. And use Q4 or whatever time frame you want to put to build momentum so that as you're pushing into the year, you don't want your year to start January 1. You want it to start now. And by momentum, you want to push through January 1.
Wow. You just spoke to the person. I want you to speak to the church leader. I want you to speak to the department leader about that same understanding of vision casting, goal setting, establishing a plan that is centered around progression. There are a lot of ministers, Pastor Dominic, that their fires went out. They're just treading water. They're just treading water. And the truth is, our society is a progressive society, and there is a need for healthy progression in ministry.
Yeah.
The role of ending the year strong from a ministry standpoint and going into the new year. Talk to that leader about innovation and maybe even possibly reinventing themselves.
Yeah, and I think when you're at a place where you're burned out and you're at the end of yourself, there's a reason why you're there.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times it's because you didn't delegate, you didn't have a team, you didn't, you're doing it all yourself. And you may be telling yourself that you don't have a team and no one's with you, but the reality probably is you haven't allowed it. All right. So check that. Have you allowed it, or are you truly on your own? That's a reality question. right? But if you're burned out, you really have nothing left, right? Your gas tank is empty.
Yeah.
You got to get recharged. You got to do what you can, to get recharged. And I'm going to tell you, just stopping and praying, you've been praying, but your prayers are so beat up right now, they're not helping you,
Wow.
right? You're just exhausted.
Wow.
Get help. Get help. Bring someone, get someone to get help where you can replenish yourself, um, so that you can keep moving, and then look at how did you get in that place,
Yeah.
right? And start looking at, was it my own leadership? Was it my own need for control? Who can I allow to do something? And then what type of innovation can I put in place? What type of technology? What efficiencies can I put in place, so that I'm not getting burned out and I'm not running myself in the ground? It's hard, especially if you're bivocational. I mean, you have a lot of things pulling on you.
Yeah.
But I say this: don't let your family suffer for it.
Wow. Wow. Don't let your for it. Dominic, man, it's always a joy having you. One last thought, effective living. I've been pushing, man, and this whole element of faith, family, finance, fitness, and fun, drawing up a blueprint, trying to remind people that even when they try and it didn't work, that whole concept of try again, don't give up, dust yourself off, go slow if you must. Those are all messages that I encourage, but don't quit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that just as the last statement of, you know what, I may not be good at it, but I'll never stop trying to get better at it. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, my foundational statement that I use is small steps over time equal big results. And so the reality is that sometimes those steps are crawling. Sometimes I'm dragging myself through the dirt, and sometimes I'm running. But as long as I'm moving forward, I can never lose, right? It's not over till you quit. And I think there is the place where you have to say, okay, why did that not work?
Yep.
What do I need to do to become better?
Yep.
And you can't be a victim. Oh, well, it was me. Once you start becoming a victim, you've lost. But just know that if you don't quit, just moving forward, small steps over time equal big results. You're going to win. You're going to win. The guy that does big, I do that in the corporate world. Even when I hire someone and they have instant success, I know that person's going to flame out, because they're not going to know how to deal with hard times. But the guy that has to really dig and build slowly, they have a long, very prosperous career. You've got to know the power of consistency, small steps over time. Again, sometimes that's crawling. Sometimes that's, you're doing everything you can just to inch, forward or whatever. Sometimes you get knocked backwards, but you just keep moving forward. Small steps over time equal big results.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Dominic Antonino, that's my brother. Bro, we've not had this in a while. I'm going to have to schedule one of these at least once a quarter. Hey, if you have not gotten a copy of my book, guys, go to my website and order a copy of this book. It'll help you with the plan. It'll help you organize yourself so that you can end the year strong and prepare yourself for the new year. I'll sign it if you go to my website and get a copy today. Dominic, as we go and close out this fourth quarter with a bang, possibly having all that we wish will happen within this last quarter, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because, like you mentioned, creeping, crawling, walking, jogging. I've told people time and time again, effective living is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And a part of it, not only being it is a marathon, it's a juggling act. There are so many pieces you're just trying to keep in the air and touching each appropriate piece at its appropriate time so that nothing falls. To your wife and to your beautiful kids, man, I love and appreciate you. And my birthday is coming up, bro. We're going
to be there tomorrow, brother. We're going to do it.
We're going to celebrate together. So love and appreciate you, man. Have a good night. Thank you for joining me.
Bless you, man. Take care.
That's it.